Did you know that jam roly-poly were once as common on British tables as fish and chips? There was a time when these 10 British foods were absolutely everywhere in the 1970s. Every family ate them. Every school served them. Every corner shop sold them. They weren't just popular, they were British culture. Then they vanished. These foods that fed an entire generation were suddenly gone. If you remember the excitement of seeing these foods appear on your dinner table, hit the like button and subscribe, because today we're uncovering 10 British foods from the 1970s that vanished forever, taking with them the traditions and memories tied to every bite. 1. Angel Delight Original Flavors. Close your eyes and imagine the excitement of watching your mum tear open that familiar orange packet. Angel Delight wasn't just a dessert, it was pure magic in powder form. The original tangy orange flavour, launched in 1967, had reached its absolute peak by the mid-70s. Every birthday party, every Sunday dinner, every special occasion seemed incomplete without it. What made tangy orange so special wasn't just its impossibly bright colour or its ability to set in mere minutes. It was the taste. Sharp, citrusy, with an almost fizzy quality that danced on your tongue. But by the late 70s, changing tastes and health consciousness began to chip away at Angel Delight's dominance. The very convenience that made it a household staple started to feel artificial in an era growing more suspicious of processed foods. Newer flavors replaced the original lineup, and slowly that distinctive tangy orange disappeared from shelves forever. Now, when we think of Angel Delight, we remember kitchen counters dusted with orange powder, the satisfying whir of the electric whisk, and the pure anticipation of that first spoonful. It wasn't just dessert, it was the taste of childhood itself, sweet and fleeting as a summer evening. But while families were saying goodbye to their favorite desserts, the chocolate industry was about to witness its own shocking casualties. 2. Aztec bars. Before there was a clear winner in the chocolate bar wars, Cadbury had a secret weapon that could have changed everything. The Aztec bar arrived in the early 70s with all the swagger of a conquering hero, promising to take on Mars directly with its own unique blend of caramel and nougat wrapped in thick dairy milk chocolate. The Aztec offered something subtly superior: richer chocolate, a more complex caramel, and a nougat that didn't stick to your teeth quite as aggressively. But success in the confectionery world is as much about timing as it is about taste. And by the late 70s, the Aztec's fate was already sealed. Despite having a devoted following and taste that many considered superior to its competitors, Cadbury made the difficult decision to discontinue the bar. Market share, production costs, and the brutal mathematics of retail space all conspired against this chocolate champion. And just when British sweet lovers thought they'd seen the last of truly innovative chocolate bars, the confectionery landscape was about to shift in ways no one could predict. 3. Traditional set blancmange. There was a time when no proper British dinner party was complete without the gentle wobble of a perfectly set blancmange taking centre stage on the dessert table. This wasn't the instant powder variety that survived into the modern era. This was the real thing. Painstakingly prepared with corn flour, milk and sugar, then set in beautiful copper moulds that created architectural wonders of wobbly perfection. The traditional blancmange of the 70s was a testament to domestic skill and patience. Housewives would spend hours perfecting the technique. The result was something both elegant and playful. But as convenience culture took hold and dinner parties became more casual, the labour-intensive blancmange began to feel outdated. Why spend hours preparing something that could be replaced with instant pudding or shop-bought mousse? The skills passed down through generations of British cooks slowly faded as microwave meals and ready-made desserts filled our fridges. What remains now are faded photographs and distant memories of those spectacular wobbling towers, their surfaces gleaming like edible jewels under dining room lights. The traditional blancmange didn't just disappear, it took with it an entire culture of patient, careful cooking that once defined British hospitality. As home entertaining traditions crumbled, the institutions that had fed Britain's children were facing their own revolution. 4. School dinner butterscotch tart. Every school child of the 70s knew and at the very top sat the legendary butterscotch tart. This wasn't the delicate version you might find in modern restaurants. This was thick, golden butterscotch filling that could survive the journey from kitchen to dining hall. Covered in pastry that was strong enough to hold together, but tender enough to crumble satisfyingly under a plastic spoon. The school dinner butterscotch tart represented something magical. While most school meals were endured rather than enjoyed, this dessert could transform an ordinary Wednesday into something approaching celebration. But as nutritional guidelines tightened and school meal budgets shrank, these calorie-dense delights were among the first casualties. The 80s brought salad bars and fresh fruit initiatives. Health-conscious parents and administrators couldn't justify serving something so unapologetically indulgent to children, no matter how much joy it brought. While schools were abandoning their sweetest traditions, working-class communities were about to lose the very foundations of their daily sustenance. 5. Pork dripping on toast. Saturday mornings in working-class British homes once carried a distinctive aroma that modern air fresheners could never replicate. It was the smell of pork dripping, carefully saved from the Sunday roast, slowly melting on thick slices of white bread under the grill. This wasn't just food, it was heritage on a plate, connecting families to centuries of British cooking tradition. Nothing was wasted in 70s households, and the rich, savoury fat from the weekly roast became the foundation for one of Britain's most satisfying simple meals. The decline came gradually, then suddenly, health scares about saturated fat, changing work patterns that eliminated the traditional Sunday roast routine. By the 80s, admitting you ate dripping on toast was almost embarrassing, a sign of being behind the times in a world racing toward low-fat everything. Now, pork dripping exists mainly in the world of heritage cooking and trendy gastropubs trying to recreate authentic British flavours. But it will never again be the simple, unashamed pleasure it once was for millions of British families gathered around kitchen tables on cold Saturday mornings. As working-class food traditions were disappearing, the elaborate celebrations that had defined British social life were facing their own quiet extinction. If these forgotten flavours are bringing back your own childhood memories, don't forget to subscribe and share this journey with others who remember when food was simpler but somehow more satisfying. 6. Traditional gala pie. The name alone brings images of every significant British gathering, suspended in seasoned pork that took real skill to perfect. Making a proper gala pie was an event in itself. The process could take the better part of a day, then the anxious wait to see if the pastry would hold during the long, slow baking process. Success meant applause at the village fete or family gathering. Failure meant starting over or serving something else entirely. But as entertaining became more casual and home baking gave way to shop-bought convenience, the gala pie's complexity became its downfall. Even if the bought version never quite captured the same pride or flavour, the copper moulds and pie-making equipment were left in attic storage, victims of changing lifestyles and diminishing confidence in traditional cooking skills. And just as traditional baking skills were disappearing from British kitchens, even the most humble school dinner staples were about to face their own dramatic reckoning. 7. School dinner spam fritters. Nothing divided 70s school children quite like spam fritters. You either loved them with the passion of a first crush or despised them with the intensity of a lifelong grudge. These golden, crispy rectangles of battered processed meat was a masterclass in transformation. The pink meat from the tin became something entirely different when encased in batter and fried until golden. The contrast between the crispy exterior and the soft, salty interior created a texture combination that was utterly unique to the school dining experience. Served alongside chips and beans, it formed part of a trinity that could make even the most reluctant eater clean their plate. But changing attitudes toward processed meat, combined with tightening nutritional standards for school meals, spelled doom for the spam fritter. The very qualities that made it appealing to children, the salt content, the processing, the deep frying, became everything that modern school nutrition policies aim to eliminate. Today's schoolchildren will never know the satisfaction of biting through that crispy batter to reach the salty surprise within. And as institutional cooking was being revolutionized, regional food traditions that had sustained entire communities for generations were quietly slipping away. 8. Tinned ham and peas pudding combinations. In the industrial heartlands of northern England, there existed a combination so perfect, so satisfying, that it sustained entire communities through decades of hard work and uncertain times. Tinned ham and peas pudding wasn't just a meal, it was comfort food at its most essential, bringing together the convenience of modern preservation with the satisfaction of dried peas transformed into golden, creamy perfection. This combination represented something uniquely British about making the best of simple ingredients. The tinned ham provided protein and saltiness, while the peas pudding offered comfort and substance. Families would gather around tables covered with newspaper, the combination served with thick slices of bread and butter, creating meals that were humble and magnificent in their satisfaction. But as fresh meat became more affordable and exotic cuisines began appearing in British supermarkets, these humble combinations started to feel outdated. Convenience foods evolved beyond tinned meat, and the patience required for proper peas pudding seemed unnecessary in a world of instant everything. But perhaps the most heartbreaking losses were yet to come. The disappearance of desserts that had made even the grimmest institutional meals feel like celebrations. 9. School dinner, steamed puddings with thick custard. There was a very specific kind of magic that happened in school dinner halls across Britain every day in the 1970s. It was the moment when dinner ladies would emerge from the kitchen carrying vast trays of steamed pudding, followed by enormous jugs of custard so thick you could almost stand a spoon in it. The steamed puddings came in glorious varieties: treacle, jam, chocolate, sultana, each one dense and satisfying in a way that modern desserts rarely achieve. But it was the custard that transformed these simple puddings into something magical. That thick, yellow custard with its characteristic skin that formed on top was polarizing. You either carefully spooned around it or broke through it with ceremonial pleasure. But changing nutritional standards and modern health consciousness couldn't accommodate these calorie-dense delights. As school meals embraced fresh fruit and yogurt, the steamed pudding tradition died quietly, taking with it some of the simple joy that had brightened countless childhood afternoons. What remains are memories of that first spoonful, the way the custard mixed with the pudding, and the satisfied silence that would fall over dining halls as hundreds of children savoured something genuinely wonderful in their otherwise regimented day. As institutional cooking traditions vanished, even the most innovative convenience foods were about to discover that popularity alone couldn't guarantee survival. 10. Goblin puddings in tins. The final entry in our journey through vanished British foods takes us to perhaps the most surprising disappearance of all. Goblin puddings in tins represented the absolute peak of 70s convenience culture, proper steamed puddings that could be heated and served in minutes, bringing the comfort of traditional British desserts to families too busy or inexperienced to make them from scratch. These weren't cheap imitations or poor substitutes. Goblin had somehow managed to capture the essential character of proper steamed pudding and preserve it in a tin. The texture remained satisfyingly dense, the flavors rich and authentic, and the convenience was revolutionary. A proper pudding course could appear on any family table within 10 minutes of deciding you wanted it. Mothers would stock their cupboards with multiple varieties, knowing that any meal could be elevated from ordinary to special with the simple act of opening a tin and heating the contents. The packaging itself became iconic, those distinctive labels promising just like homemade in an era when homemade was still the gold standard. But convenience food evolved beyond Goblin's simple promise, and changing tastes left these faithful puddings behind. Microwave culture demanded different textures and heating methods, while health-conscious eating made dense, sugary puddings feel indulgent to the point of guilt. And so ended not just a brand, but an entire approach to family desserts that had sustained British households through decades of change. The honourable mentions Findus crispy pancakes filled with mysterious meat that somehow tasted better than it had any right to. Watney's Party 7 cans that promised celebration but delivered disappointment. Lyon's individual fruit pies with their distinctive crimped edges and fruit fillings that defied identification. Bird's eye potato waffles before they became ubiquitous, when they felt revolutionary. Marathon bars before they became Snickers and lost their British identity forever. These 10 foods didn't just disappear, they took with them entire rituals, family traditions, and shared experiences that once bound British communities together. They were the tastes that defined childhood, the treats that marked special occasions, and the simple pleasures that made ordinary days feel extraordinary. The Britain of the 1970s was a country in transition, caught between its traditional past and an uncertain future. These foods were part of that transition, representing both the innovation of modern convenience and the comfort of familiar flavors. Which of these forgotten foods triggered your strongest memory? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's keep these tastes alive in the only way we can now, through the shared remembrance of those who were lucky enough to experience them when they were simply part of everyday British life, before they became legends of a vanished culinary world.